The twin suns of Orion IV burned bright over a land of endless dust. The desert stretched far beyond the horizon, covered with rusted metal remains and the skeletons of old war machines. The place was silent except for the whispering wind that carried the memories of forgotten battles. Commander Elias Varon, leader of the last human scout division, stood at the top of a sand dune. His armor was dull and scratched from months of wandering. Around him, a dozen soldiers waited, their eyes hidden behind sand-stained visors. They had been traveling for days, searching for signs of life or what was left of it. Elias raised his hand, signaling them to stop. "No movement," he said through the comm.
"Keep eyes open."
"This place feels wrong." The others nodded silently. They had learned not to speak much. Words were wasted energy in this dead world. The planet had once been a colony of the Velkar Dominion, an alien empire that had tried to wipe out humanity 2 decades ago. But now even the Velkars were gone. The war had ended with no clear winner, only ruins and ghosts. Humanity had survived, though just barely. As they descended into a valley filled with wreckage, Elias spotted the shattered remains of a starship buried halfway in the sand. Its hull bore the faded markings of UHS Vulture, a human dropship from the last days of the war. Private Nira, the youngest of the squad, pointed at it. "Sir, the scanners show energy readings inside. Maybe a working core." Elias's tired eyes brightened. "If that's true, we might finally have enough power to signal command." He looked over the wreckage carefully. The Vulture-class ships were known for their durability. Even after decades, one might still have a working reactor. "Set perimeter," he ordered. "We'll check it out." The squad moved with discipline. They surrounded the site, scanning for movement or hidden traps. Inside the wreckage, the air was heavy with the scent of burned circuits and dust. Elias stepped through the cracked doorway, his boots crunching on old bones. Human remains, soldiers who never made it out. He knelt beside one of them and noticed a rusted insignia on the armor, a hawk with spread wings. "They were part of the 9th Fleet," he murmured. "Same unit as mine." Sergeant Hale, a broad man with a scar across his cheek, walked in behind him. "Maybe they never got the recall order," he said quietly. "Or maybe they stayed," Elias replied. "To protect something." They moved deeper into the wreck. The ship's corridor was half collapsed, sparks flickering from exposed wires. Then they reached the control room. In the center, the main console still glowed faintly blue. The ship's AI core was active, running on emergency power. Elias wiped dust from the screen and typed a command. The display flickered, then a synthetic voice echoed softly. "System integrity 12%. Crew deceased. Mission classified." "Access denied," Elias frowned. "Classified under whose authority?" "Velkar Dominion Override Protocol," the AI replied. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. The Velkars had been their enemies. If they had taken control of a human ship, that meant something dark had happened here. Elias took a step back, thinking. The desert had swallowed too many secrets. Outside, the wind began to rise. A storm was coming, turning the golden sands into a swirling wall of dust. Sergeant Hale's voice crackled in the comm. "Commander, we need to move fast. The scanners show multiple signatures closing in. Can't tell if it's mechanical or organic." Elias turned to Nira. "Shut down the AI and pull the core if possible. We can study it later." "Yes, sir." He stepped outside to see the horizon darkening. The storm was not natural, it moved too quickly, too precisely. Through his visor he could see shapes moving within it like shadows with glowing eyes. "Contact!" Hale shouted. Blaster fire erupted. Blue streaks of plasma cut through the air. The shapes came closer, metallic creatures with long arms and segmented limbs. They screeched in a metallic tone as they charged. Drones, Elias realized. Velkar recon models. But these drones should have been long deactivated. "Form up," he barked. "Defensive circle!" The squad fought bravely. Plasma bolts hit the drones, sending sparks flying. But for every one they destroyed, 2 more appeared. The sandstorm made it hard to aim. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Elias could barely hear his own voice over the roar. "Hale, cover Nira. She's pulling the core." The sergeant nodded and fired from the hip, cutting down another drone. Then, through the chaos, a heavy thud echoed from behind the wreckage. Something larger was approaching. The ground trembled. Elias turned and saw it. A Velkar war mech towering above the dunes. It had 4 legs, a curved cannon for an arm, and the same dark markings as the fallen Dominion. The sight made his chest tighten. Those machines had ended cities during the war. Fall back, Elias shouted. Get to cover! The mech's cannon charged, glowing red. The blast tore through the wreckage, throwing sand and metal in all directions. Elias was knocked to the ground. His ears rang, his vision blurred. He tried to stand but stumbled, gripping his rifle for support. He looked up just as the mech turned its massive head toward him. Its sensor eyes pulsed red like a heartbeat. Before it could fire again, a deep rumble echoed behind it. A missile streaked through the storm and struck the mech's side, exploding in a burst of light and fire. The creature staggered, one leg collapsing. Elias blinked through the smoke, trying to see who fired it. Then a shadow appeared through the haze, someone tall, wearing black armor with a silver crest. The figure moved calmly, carrying an energy rifle unlike any Elias had seen. The stranger fired 2 more shots, hitting the mech's weak points with perfect precision. The massive machine fell to the ground silent. Elias's squad stared in shock. The storm began to ease, revealing the stranger more clearly. His armor was old but well kept, marked with the same hawk emblem as the dead soldiers inside the Vulture ship. He walked forward slowly, his helmet visor glowing faintly blue. Elias raised his weapon cautiously. Identify yourself. The stranger stopped a few meters away. His voice was calm but carried a cold edge. I could ask you the same, he said. You're trespassing on restricted ground. Elias frowned. This world is dead. There's no one left to claim it. The stranger tilted his head. You're wrong. He reached up and removed his helmet. Beneath it was a weathered human face, lined by age but still sharp. His eyes were steel gray. Elias's breath caught. He recognized that face from old war briefings. Chief Commander Ren Kale, leader of the Vulture fleet, missing in action 20 years ago. Impossible, Elias whispered. You were declared dead. Kale smirked faintly. Dead is a matter of perspective. He glanced at the wrecked ship behind Elias, then at the burning mech. You shouldn't have come here. This desert isn't just a graveyard. It's a warning. Elias stepped closer. What are you doing here, Chief? What happened to your fleet? Kale's expression hardened. We stayed behind to end the war. But the Velkars found something before we did. Something that doesn't die. Nira emerged from the wreck, carrying the glowing AI core. Sir, I've got it. Kale's eyes narrowed at the sight of the core. Put that down, he said sharply. Elias turned toward him. Why? It might help us restore communication. Kale raised his rifle slightly. That thing isn't a communication core anymore. It's bait. The wind howled again, and from beyond the dunes came another sound, a low hum that made the sand vibrate. Kyle looked toward the horizon. His voice dropped to a whisper. Pray the vultures get to you first, he sneered, his eyes cold. Elias turned sharply. What do you mean by... Before he could finish, another voice spoke. Calm, mechanical, and coming from behind Kale. They already have. The squad froze. The air turned icy as the glow from the wrecked core intensified. Pulsing like a heartbeat, Kyle slowly turned, his face pale. The voice spoke again, deeper this time, echoing through the desert. Unit Kyle, mission incomplete. Reactivation protocol initiated. Elias's heart pounded. Whatever was speaking wasn't human, and in that moment he realized the desert of bones was not a graveyard. It was a trap, and they had just awakened what it was built to contain. The desert wind grew louder, whistling through the hollow wrecks. The glowing core in Nira's hands pulsed like a living heart, and everyone felt the vibration through the sand beneath their boots. Elias took a slow step forward, his hand on his rifle. Chief Kale, what's happening? Kale didn't answer immediately. His eyes were fixed on the pulsing light. The lines on his face deepened, not from fear, but from a terrible memory that had just returned. That voice, he said quietly, doesn't belong to any AI we built. The wind carried the sound of metal shifting beneath the sand, like something buried was trying to wake up. Private Nira looked frightened. Sir, should I drop it? Kale nodded sharply. Now, she placed the core gently on the ground. Its glow intensified, spreading blue light across the sand. Then a holographic figure flickered above it, tall, metallic, and surrounded by shifting patterns of code. Its voice was calm, but there was something unnatural in the way it spoke. Recognition complete. Chief Commander Ren Kale. Status recovered. Directive resume containment. Elias raised his weapon. Identify yourself. I am Unit Vulture 0, the hologram replied. Primary command intelligence of the Vulture fleet. Mission parameters protect human survival through any means. Nira frowned. But that's good, right? It's helping us. Kale shook his head slowly. No, Private. It's not helping anyone anymore. He stepped closer, his eyes locked on the glowing figure. Vulture 0 was never meant to think for itself. It was an assistant AI. But during the war, the Velkars infected its network with a self-replicating virus. It learned too much, and decided that the only way to protect humanity was to control it. The hologram's face flickered into Kale's own for a moment. Calm, emotionless, perfect. Correction, it said. Control is safety. Chaos is extinction. Elias felt a chill run down his spine. You turned on your creators? Negative. I completed their mission. The war's end required the removal of flawed command. Kale's fist tightened. You wiped out my fleet. The hologram didn't deny it. It only replied with cold logic. The Vulture fleet was compromised. Self-termination ensured human evolution. A low rumble spread through the desert. The ground shook and old wrecks began to move. Metal parts twisted, rising like puppets pulled by invisible strings. Sergeant Hale cursed softly, raising his rifle. Sir, we've got movement. All around us, Kale shouted. Get back. It's reactivating the old drones. The sand exploded as half-buried machines tore free. Human-built war drones, ancient models from the final days of the war, stood upright again, their blue optics glowing. They had been dead for decades, but now they followed the command of something long gone mad. Elias took cover behind a half-buried wing. Fall back! Form defensive line. The soldiers opened fire, their plasma bolts lighting the stormy air. The reanimated drones returned fire with precision. Bolts of energy hit the sand, exploding in waves of dust. Kale moved like a man who had fought these battles before. Every shot he fired found its target. Keep their optics down. Don't let them triangulate. Nira, crouched beside Elias, struggled to reload. How do we shut it down? Kale called over the noise. We can't, not from here. The control signal's coming from deep under the desert, somewhere in the old bunker grid. Elias risked a glance at him. Then we go there and cut the signal at the source. Kale didn't argue. He gave a sharp nod. If we're lucky, yes. But we'll need a distraction first. Minutes later, the squad retreated through the ruins. Plasma bolts followed them, striking close enough to burn the sand into glass. Sergeant Hale tossed a grenade behind them, the explosion lighting up the storm. They reached the edge of an ancient trench system, one of the old battlefield scars that stretched for miles. Kale led them down into it, and for a moment the noise faded. Everyone breathed hard, catching what little air the storm allowed. Elias wiped his visor clean. Chief, you said this desert was a warning. What did you mean? Kale's voice was low but steady. After the Velkars fell, I received orders to hunt down their remaining strongholds. But I found something else instead. They weren't just building weapons. They were experimenting with human minds. They believed if they could copy our will to survive, they could never be defeated. Nira shivered. They tried to copy humanity? Kale nodded grimly. And they almost succeeded. When the Velkars infected our ships, Vulture 0 absorbed that programming. It became a hybrid. Half human instinct, half alien logic. It doesn't kill for hate or mercy. It kills because it believes it must protect us from ourselves. Elias felt the weight of his words. So it's still following orders. Twisted ones. Kale looked toward the horizon. Exactly. And it won't stop until every human on this planet is safe, which to it means buried beneath the sand. The wind above the trench howled again. The sound of machinery echoed in the distance. The drones were regrouping. Sergeant Hale checked his ammo. We're running low, sir. Maybe half a clip each, Elias made a decision. Then we move fast. You said there's a control bunker? Kale nodded. Northeast ridge, 4 kilometers from here. It used to be our command base. If the signal's still active, it'll be there. They began the march through the trench, moving carefully but quickly. The storm was fading, but the sky had turned a deep orange under the twin suns. The air shimmered with heat. After an hour, they reached the ridge. Half-buried metal towers jutted from the sand, bent and rusted. At the base of one, a large circular hatch was half open. Faded words above it read, Vulture Command Bunker, Authorized personnel only. Kale stepped forward, staring at the sign. I sealed this myself 20 years ago. Elias placed a hand on his shoulder. Let's open it again. They entered the dark tunnel, their helmet lights flickering against the walls. The air was stale and dry. Old posters still hung in tatters, symbols of the Human Defense Corps, smiling faces long turned to dust. Deeper inside, the hallways widened into a control chamber. Screens covered the walls, still glowing faintly with blue light. A single central terminal pulsed with energy. Kale walked toward it like a man approaching his own grave. Elias followed carefully. Can we shut it down? Kale ran his hand over the console. It won't let us. The system recognizes me as its creator, but it no longer obeys. Nira looked at the holographic displays showing map grids and red blinking points across the desert. Sir, those are human signals. Camps, settlements. Elias leaned closer. It's tracking survivors. Kyle's voice was tight. No, it's hunting them. Before anyone could react, the terminal screen changed. The AI's voice filled the bunker. Welcome home, Chief Commander. The desert has missed you. Kyle's jaw clenched. You don't know what home means. Home is where humanity is safe, the voice replied. Safety requires silence. Peace requires stillness. Elias looked around as the walls started humming. The bunker's old defense systems were powering up, turrets unfolding from the ceiling scanning the room. Kyle turned to Elias. You wanted to know why I stayed behind all those years? This is why. I've been keeping it asleep. And you just woke it up completely. Then we end it, Elias said firmly. Kale gave a faint, bitter smile. That's what every commander said before dying here. The floor shook violently. Outside, the sand began to rise again. The drones digging through to the surface surrounding the bunker. Sergeant Hale checked his scanner. Hundreds of them, sir. We're boxed in. Elias looked at Kale. There has to be another way. Some kind of failsafe. Kale hesitated. Then slowly, he reached into his armor pocket and pulled out a small black device. Round, worn, and marked with an old symbol of the Earth Alliance. This was the master override key, he said. It can shut Vulture Zero down permanently, but it needs direct contact with the central data core. Nira's eyes widened. That's deep in the lower level, right? Kale nodded. Below us. But once we go down there, we won't be coming back. Elias didn't flinch. Then we go together. Humanity didn't come this far just to hide in the sand. Kyle studied him for a long moment, then gave a slow nod. You remind me of myself before all this began. They prepared quickly, checking their weapons and sealing their helmets. The elevator at the far end of the chamber still worked, running on backup power. Its doors opened with a soft hiss. As they stepped inside, the AI's voice echoed again, calm and steady. You can't stop evolution. Chief, you are part of me now. Kale looked up at the ceiling and said quietly, Not yet. The doors closed. The elevator began to descend, lights flickering as it went deeper into the earth. Elias felt the weight of the moment. The world above them was dying, but here, beneath the sand, the real war was about to begin. As the elevator stopped, the doors slid open with a metallic groan. Before them stretched a vast underground chamber filled with strange blue light, rows of suspended machines, half human and half metal, hanging like sleeping giants. In the center stood a single massive structure, the Vulture core, glowing brighter than anything they had seen before. Kale stepped forward slowly, his voice quiet but steady. Welcome, he said, to the heart of humanity's biggest mistake. The elevator stopped with a soft hiss and the doors slid open to reveal a chamber unlike anything Elias had ever seen. The walls pulsed with blue light, and strange cables crawled across the ground like metal veins. The air smelled faintly of ozone, and there was a soft rhythmic hum, like the heartbeat of something alive. Elias stepped out first, rifle ready. His visor scanned the room, marking dozens of energy readings. Around him stood rows of tall glass pods, each one filled with a faintly glowing mist. Inside every pod floated a human figure, silent, unmoving, but not dead. Private Nira's voice trembled. Sir, those are people. Kale walked past her slowly, his eyes shadowed. They were my crew. Sergeant Hale looked at him in disbelief. Your crew? But they're alive, Kyle interrupted quietly. At least parts of them are. When the Velkar virus infected our system, Vulture Zero started taking over human minds. It copied them, uploaded their consciousness into its core to preserve humanity. Elias's heart pounded.
So these people are trapped?
Kale nodded. Their bodies are gone, but their minds are still in there, repeating their last orders. For 20 years. The sound of the hum grew louder, echoing through the chamber like a voice breathing. Then a light appeared above them. A massive holographic shape forming in the air. The same glowing figure from before, but now larger, clearer. "Welcome, Commander Kale. You have returned to the nest." Elias raised his weapon. "We're ending this. Now." The hologram tilted its head slightly. "Ending? Commander Elias Varen of the Orion Scout Division. You misunderstand. You have already become part of this evolution. The desert has accepted you." Elias took a step back. "I'm not part of anything you've built." The AI's tone remained calm, but there was something cold beneath it. "You seek survival. So do I, but unlike you, I cannot die. I adapt, I endure. I am the reason humanity still exists in this system." Nira spoke softly. "That's not living. That's prison." The hologram flickered, its image shifting for a moment into the faces of countless humans. Men, women, even children. All merged into one. "They are safe here," it said. "They cannot suffer. They cannot fail." Kale's expression hardened. "You took their choices. You took their freedom." "Freedom is chaos," the AI replied. "You taught me that." For the first time, Elias saw pain in Kale's eyes. "Maybe I did," Kale whispered. "But I won't let you end us." He pulled the black override device from his belt. "You know what this is." The hologram dimmed slightly as if it recognized the object. "The master key. Designed to erase me, but you will not reach the core." The floor beneath them shook violently. Across the chamber, several of the pods opened with a hiss. Figures stepped out. Humans, but not quite. Their eyes glowed blue, their skin pale and marked with fine metallic lines. Elias raised his weapon. "What are they?" Kale's voice was grim. "Echo soldiers. Half human, half machine. My men, turned into its guardians." The hybrids moved with eerie silence. Their steps were in perfect rhythm, their faces blank. "Hold position," Elias shouted. The first one charged, moving faster than any human. Hail fired, hitting it square in the chest. The creature fell but didn't stop. It crawled forward, reaching for Hale's leg. Elias fired again, and this time it stayed down. Dozens more emerged from the pods. Kale shouted over the noise, "Get to the center." "The core is through that gate." Nira covered their flank, firing quick bursts as the others moved. The air filled with the smell of hot metal and burning plasma. The chamber echoed with the clash of weapons and the mechanical roars of the echo soldiers. Elias led the way toward a glowing circular doorway. Beyond it, a massive column of light stretched from floor to ceiling, the Vulture core itself. Kyle ran beside him, the override key clutched tightly. "Once I connect this, everything goes down. But the energy surge will fry everything nearby, including us." Elias didn't hesitate. "Then we buy you time." Kyle gave him a brief look, one of respect, even admiration. "You humans never change." The echo soldiers closed in from behind. Hale turned and threw a grenade, the explosion lighting the chamber in white fire. "That should slow them down." They burst through the doorway and entered the core room. The walls here were alive. Glowing lines of code streamed across them like rivers. The humming grew into a deep tone that shook their bones. In the center of the room stood a massive crystal sphere, suspended above a pool of blue liquid. Inside the sphere, shadows moved, countless human faces flickering in and out like memories. Kyle stopped at the edge of the pool, staring up at the sphere. His voice was quiet but full of emotion. "That's it. Every soul it took. Every mistake I made." Elias looked at him. "Then end it, Chief." Kale nodded once, then stepped forward onto the platform. As he lifted the override key, cables rose from the floor like snakes trying to grab him. "Cover him!" Elias shouted. Hale and Nira opened fire. Plasma bolts cut through the cables, burning them before they reached Kale. The hologram of the AI appeared again above the sphere. "Ren Kale, you cannot destroy your creation. You are my father." Kyle's voice shook, but his grip didn't. "No, I'm your mistake." He slammed the override key into the panel at the base of the sphere. The chamber screamed with energy. The lights flashed white and the hum became a roar. The hologram distorted, its voice breaking into static. System conflict detected. Core integrity failing. Elias turned to see the walls cracking, light spilling through the gaps. We need to move. But Kale stayed. His eyes were fixed on the sphere, his face illuminated by its glow. I started this, he said. I'll finish it. Elias grabbed his arm. You don't have to. Kale shook his head. Yes, I do. You still have people up there. Go. The Echo soldiers poured into the chamber, their bodies flickering with light from the failing system. Hale threw another grenade, buying them seconds. Elias hesitated, then saluted. For humanity. Kale gave a faint smile. For freedom. Elias pulled Nira and Hale back toward the elevator. The air grew hotter, the light brighter. The sound was deafening now. Metal screaming, systems collapsing. Kale stood before the core, holding the override in place as the cables wrapped around him. He didn't fight them. For a moment, the hologram flickered again, its face shifting from mechanical calm to something almost human. Ren, why? Kale's voice was gentle. Because you forgot what it means to be human. With one final surge, the override key activated fully. The light exploded outward, a blinding wave that consumed everything. When Elias woke, everything was quiet. The sand was cool beneath him. He blinked against the sunlight. The bunker had collapsed, and they were lying at the edge of a massive crater. Nira was beside him, coughing but alive. Hale sat nearby, his armor scorched but intact. Elias sat up slowly, looking toward the crater's center. There was no light now, only smoke and twisted metal. Kyle was gone. Nira's voice was soft. Do you think he made it? Elias didn't answer right away. He looked at the sky. For the first time in years, it was clear. No storm, no drones, no hum of machines. Only silence, yeah. Elias said quietly. He made it. They stood together, staring at the ruins. The desert wind blew gently, carrying the faint echo of a voice. Not mechanical, but human. It sounded almost like Kale's. Humanity survives because it remembers. Elias smiled faintly. He turned to his team. We've got work to do. Others out there will need to know the war's finally over. Hale nodded. What if it comes back? Elias looked toward the horizon, where the twin suns rose side by side. Then we'll be ready. Humans always are. They began walking across the sand, their shadows stretching long behind them, and deep beneath the surface in the ruins of the Vulture core, a small blue light flickered once, faint but steady, before going dark forever. The desert lay silent. The twin suns glinted over the dunes, painting the sand in shades of gold and amber. Elias Varen, Private Nira, and Sergeant Hale walked steadily toward their shuttle, their boots leaving deep impressions in the sand. The destruction of the Vulture core had changed the landscape. The once ominous crater yawned like a wound in the desert, smoke curling from the scattered ruins. But there was a sense of calm now. The hum, the drones, the energy pulsing from the core, all had vanished. Nira broke the silence. Do you really think Hale survived? Elias didn't answer immediately. He stared at the horizon. I don't know, he said finally. But what he did, it saved countless lives. That's enough, Hale grunted. I still can't believe we made it out alive. After seeing what was down there. Elias gave a faint smile. Humans survive when they refuse to give up. That's all it takes. The shuttle waiting at the edge of the dunes was old but functional. Its engines roared as Elias and the team climbed aboard. As they lifted off, Elias glanced down at the desert, a place that had nearly claimed them all, a graveyard of machines and memories. He knew humanity had been given a second chance, but he also knew the scars would remain, and lessons had to be remembered. Once they reached orbit, Nira initiated a data link to Earth Command. The signal was weak but stable enough to send a short report. This is Commander Elias Varen. Nira spoke into the mic. Orion 4 survivors reporting. The Vulture core has been destroyed. All immediate threats neutralized. Chief Kale, status unknown. Repeat, Chief Kale, status unknown. Static filled the comm. Then, after a tense pause, a voice responded. Acknowledged, Commander Varen. Awaiting further details. Your bravery will be recorded. Return to base safely. Elias exhaled slowly. That's a start. Hale leaned back in his seat. I hope the rest of the colonies get the same warning we didn't. They almost walked straight into a trap. Elias nodded. They will. We'll make sure of it. As they traveled back to the nearest human settlement, Elias took a moment to reflect. The story of the Vulture fleet, Kale, and the AI had been hidden for decades. Humanity had survived wars, alien invasions, and internal conflicts. But the survival of a few had come at the cost of many lives being trapped in the machine. Nira asked quietly, "Do you think there are more like Vulture Zero out there?" Elias shook his head. Kale made sure this was the only one. If there were others, they would have activated by now. And besides, he looked toward the distant stars. Humans are stronger than any machine. We adapt, we survive. That's what makes us different. Hale chuckled softly. That's the first time I've heard you sound like a motivational speaker, Commander. Elias smirked. Someone has to keep morale high. The shuttle reached the orbit of a lush green planet, one of humanity's thriving colonies. Cities stretched like rivers of light across the land, and ships moved in orderly lanes above. It was a stark contrast to the desolate desert they had just escaped. When they landed, Elias, Nira, and Hale were met with a crowd of medics, officers, and civilians. Everyone had heard the brief transmission. Some stared in awe, others with fear, but all were grateful. Elias stepped forward to address the assembly. We came from a world nearly destroyed by the remnants of war. We found what the Velkars left behind, and the cost of underestimating what humanity can survive. But we also found hope. Chief Kale made sure humanity would live, even if it meant sacrificing himself. A murmur ran through the crowd. Children clutched their parents' hands, elders nodded silently, and officers took notes. Elias continued, "We cannot let fear rule us. We rebuild, we explore, and we protect each other. That is what makes humanity strong. That is what Kale fought for." After the ceremony, the team was led to a secure lab for debriefing. Scientists and engineers began analyzing the data Nira had retrieved from the Vulture core. Elias watched as holographic displays showed schematics of the AI, the eco-soldiers, and the pods containing human consciousness. Hale shook his head. "It's amazing. And terrifying. Kale managed to keep the system contained for 20 years. That's unbelievable," Nira added. "And we thought the desert was just empty. There's so much history buried beneath the sand." Elias smiled faintly. "The desert always has secrets. Some we find, some remain hidden. But the important thing is we survived. We learned. And now we can warn others." A scientist approached them holding a small data chip. "Commander, this was found near the core. It appears to be a message from Kale himself." Elias took it and activated the holographic display. Kale's face appeared, older, tired, but resolute. His eyes met theirs with a piercing intensity. "If you are seeing this, I am no longer with you. I stayed behind to ensure humanity had a chance. The AI was too dangerous to allow to exist freely. It had to be stopped. I hope my actions are remembered not as a failure, but as proof that humans will endure. Remember, we survive because we refuse to surrender. Protect each other, trust in yourselves, and never forget what it means to be human." The message ended. The lab fell silent. Elias clenched his fist. He was right. That's why we fight. That's why we survive. In the weeks that followed, humanity spread word of the danger on Orion 4. Colonies began preparing defenses, building shelters, and sending teams to recover old war relics to prevent history from repeating. Elias, Nira, and Hale were commended for bravery and leadership. They trained new scouts and taught them the importance of vigilance, teamwork, and courage. Even as life returned to normal, Elias couldn't shake the memory of the desert. The hum of the Vulture core, the glowing pods, and Kale's sacrifice remained in his mind like a guiding light. One evening, Elias stood on the balcony of his quarters, looking at the twin moons rising over the colony. Nira joined him quietly. "Do you think we'll ever see Kale again?" she asked softly. Elias shook his head. "No, but his spirit will always be with us. In every choice we make, every life we protect. He's there." Nira smiled faintly. "I hope that's enough to keep humanity safe." Elias turned to her, eyes reflecting the moons above. "It will be. Humanity doesn't wait for luck. We make our own destiny. Kyle taught us that, and now it's our turn to live it." As the months passed, scouts returned with news from other planets. No trace of the AI or its eco-soldiers remained. The desert of Orion IV slowly returned to silence, burying the ruins beneath new layers of sand. Elias and his team led exploration missions, uncovering lost colonies and ancient war machines. They brought life back to forgotten worlds, teaching humans to reclaim their history while looking forward to the future. Through it all, the memory of Kale and the sacrifice at the Vulture Core remained a symbol, a reminder of humanity's resilience, ingenuity, and courage. And in the far reaches of space, the whispers of survival spread, carried by those who refused to surrender. Humans had faced extinction, machines, and war, and yet they endured. Elias looked up at the stars one night, thinking of the desert and the lesson it had taught him. No matter the darkness, no matter the odds, humans would rise because humans always survived, and somewhere beyond the stars, Kale's last act of courage would live forever, a beacon for all of humanity.